David Olivia Garcia is a co-host of New Mexico in Focus and is also the managing editor for the New Mexico Independent, which is an online news site. He says that the internet has some great benefits for journalism. You know, the internet is this new, amazing medium. Not so new, really. I mean, it's been around quite some time now, but it's, I think, maturing as, among other things, a place for journalism, I think. In a sense, the internet allows you to tell stories better than in a newspaper or on television. For this reason, you can do it all online. You can have the written word, you can have still photographs, you can have video. You can link and kind of connect to the other journalism that has been done on a given topic. So it's not like you're in a vacuum.
During this period of time, there was a huge surge of activism taking place to reverse this discrimination and injustice. Activists worked together and used nonviolent protest and specific acts of targeted civil disobedience, such as the Montgomery bus boycott and the Greensboro Woolworth sit-ins, in order to bring about change. Much of this organizing and activism took place in the southern part of the United States. However, people from all over the country, of all races and religions, joined activists to proclaim their support and commitment to freedom and equality. For example, on August 28, 1963, 250,000 Americans came to Washington, D.C. for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. They came to have their voices heard and listen to speeches by many civil rights leaders, especially Martin Luther King, Jr., who delivered what would become one of the most influential speeches in history. Today we're going to be talking about categorizing and classifying reading strategies. You can follow along in the box as I go through the bulleted points. Information that has been classified together has been put into categories. You categorize when you put a name to the things you have classified as similar. Naming how objects or information have been classified helps to identify how the parts of the group are alike. Things might be categorized according to their physical structure, called their makeup, or characteristics called features. Readers use categorization to name how items in text go together. Officers use the names of each chapter or section to categorize information. Let's take a look at what classified means. Again, you can follow along the bulleted points when items are grouped together based on details they have in common. Can you describe it the way Miss Flowers taught us? What do you mean? Do you remember how she told us to communicate using clarity and precision? Oh, I remember. That means I should be careful about the words I choose so that other people can understand what I'm describing. We're always trying to get our students to use very specific language. We're saying that the more that you think with clarity and precision, the more likely you're going to be able to think better about situations. We don't want you to just be using generalizations. We want you as young children to begin to realize how important it is to be specific. We want to urge children to use clear, precise language, and that if we detect vague language, we help them become more specific. I get it. It's way more clear now. I think it's a story in my head and really focused on it so I can tell you all the details. And I saw them perfectly. And when you say communicate, do they actually communicate like they warn each other about a fire or an invasive species or something? Yes. So if one tree gets damaged by the mountain pine beetle, the injured seedling will up its defense enzymes, and then the receiving tree will then increase its defense enzymes because it knows now that there's some kind of damaging agent around. Wow, so how are they? Are they doing this? How are they communicating through an underground network? So they're physically connected by these microscopic fungi and so mushrooms. Yes, you're right. We call them hyphae or mycelium. In fact, like if you were to, peel back the surface of the forest floor, you'll see the fungi that are linking these trees together.
We can certainly try and pay for these things later on in life. But that's incredibly expensive. It's incredibly draining on public resources, draining on private resources. And there are so many needs in the community. The more we can focus on children and families early in their development, the better off we'll be in terms of our own public resources, public education, and public health. The other thing that I would recommend is we think about linking the two together, right? We have these systems of health. We have these systems of education, but rarely are the two talking to one another. So in particular, in those early years, just before a child is born and then in through those first 5 years, it's critically important that we invest early on. That way we can make sure that individual is on the right path to start school and to start helping. Economists tell us that for every dollar that we invest in a child's life before they turn 6 years old, returns over $7 of community benefits back to all of us. And so what that means for First Time and for our county is that every dollar we're investing our communities can down the road as this child gets older, as they succeed through school, and as they become productive citizens. And so early childhood education, particularly if you look at the research, it pays off in the long run. So it's really important for the business community and for the rest of our community to be focused on those aspects of early childhood education, particularly high-quality early education that pay off in the long run. We can pay for it now and invest well into a child's well-being, into kindergarten and then beyond. It's really recommend that everybody take some organization studies courses that even if you're not planning to become a nature specialist. These courses will provide leadership skills that we've got courses such as his Rosen's on leadership development. They're going to give you the interpersonal competencies and skills to advance in your career. So I think that's organization studies give people a place to go into a number of different careers, be it in the public sector of the private sector or a non-profit. Think everyone needs to understand how organizations are structured, how they function and how people interact. And then to get to your strategic goal. It's really important to take organization studies courses. And I know it's a bit of a hard sell for a lot of students who are appearing in it. The primary role for women was still considered to be, quote-unquote, at home, regardless if they had a family or not. Now, it's interesting. Even if they didn't have a family, their role was considered to be at home. Women who had the same jobs as men were paid only about 60% of what men made for doing the same work. Now, it's interesting, we could say, well, we've made a lot of progress since then and not a whole lot. It's still around 75% instead of 60% of what men make. Today, it's even as low as about 75%. So there still isn't at least pay equality for women as compared to men. Women still only made up about 21% of the workforce in. There were not that many options for working women. Folks, today I want to show you why that's wrong. I want to talk about the power of fashion and the ability it has to transform our lives. This day and age is, statistically speaking, the best time ever to be alive. We have longer lifespans, way lower mortality rates, easier access to food, shelter, education. We should all be so incredibly grateful for the gift of being alive in the 21st century. But there's a catch, right? All those perks of the modern age are pretty much offset by the constant pressure to be productive. But that idea, that sentiment, it's based on something we all intimately know. We all know that the way you dress influences how other people perceive you. It's the reason why your mom's ironing that white shirt before your first proper job interview, or you're up at midnight texting your friends 15 different outfit options before your first date with that smoking hottie from the library. All right, so when you are making an argument, you're going to construct an argument. One of the first things you have to do is you have to know the point that you're trying to make. As a part of making your point, you have to develop a thesis statement. A thesis statement is your claim or the point that you're trying to make. And preferably, it's condensed down to a very clear, concise, and accurate statement, which we call a thesis statement, a statement that when someone hears that they know one. That's the promise you're making to your reader. And two, they know exactly the point you're trying to make. And there's no confusion. It's very clear and articulate. Once you've developed your thesis statement, you need to identify the evidence that you're going to use to support your thesis.
A flower's color, however, isn't a foolproof guide to a good lunch. That's because the color can change depending on the angle at which sunlight hits its petals. A yellow flower, for example, may look somewhat blue from one angle and red from another. Scientists call this kind of color change iridescence. It's the same phenomenon that makes a rainbow appear in a soap bubble or on a CD, says Beverly Glover. She studies plants at the University of Cambridge in England. In 2009, Glover and her colleagues showed that even when petals look shimmery, bees can still tell which flowers likely hold food. But she and others noticed something odd about iridescence. It's not quite as flashy in plants as in other life forms, Glover says. The backs of jewel beetles or the wings of certain butterflies, for instance, shine and shimmer a lot more. Scientists around the world are racing to learn how to rapidly diagnose, treat, and stop the spread of a new, deadly disease. SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, was detected for the first time in February 2003 in Hanoi, and since then has infected more than 1,600 people in 15 countries, killing 63. At this point, there are more questions than answers surrounding the disease. Symptoms start with a fever over 104 degrees Fahrenheit, chills, headache or body aches. Within a week, the patient has a dry cough, which might progress to shortness of breath. In 10% to 20% of cases, patients require mechanical ventilation to breathe. About 3.5% die from the disease.
Height is correlated with a lot of things. Up to a certain height, taller people make more money than the flatly challenged. And the taller residential candidate almost always wins. Now a study finds that your height as an adult has a profound effect on your perception of your health. Short people judge their health to be worse than average, or tall people judge theirs. The research was published in the journal Clinical Endocrinology. Data for the study came from the 2003 Health Survey for England. More than 14,000 participants filled out questions and had their heights measured. The study only looked at how good the subject thought his or her health was, not their actual health.
Questions focused on 5 areas: mobility, self-care, normal activities, pain or disgrace, and anxiety or depression. Men shorter than about 5 feet 4 and women shorter than 5 feet reported the worst impressions. But small increases in height at the low end had much bigger effect on perception than the same increase among taller people. Other studies have shown, ironically, that shorter people on average actually live longer. A postal article, not the postal article. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, an article in English is a verb that precedes a noun, and simply indicates specificity. This sounds quite complicated, and to be honest, it's quite complicated to say without spraying everyone within 15 feet, but the concept's quite simple.
As soon as you walk through the doors of the event, you will be greeted with numerous engaging activities and displays. Some of the highlights include interactive exhibits demonstrating how a human heart works, sections showcasing the spinal cord and brain, and displays featuring butterflies and various insects. Visitors will even have the opportunity to try catching local insects. Additionally, there will be activities such as walking through local plant gardens to observe and understand the process of photosynthesis. The organizers of Bio Bonanza have ensured that the event caters to a diverse audience. While the displays are designed to engage high school and middle school students, there will be activities suitable for individuals of all ages. As soon as you walk through the doors of the event, you will be greeted with numerous engaging activities and displays. Some of the highlights include interactive exhibits demonstrating how a human heart works, sections showcasing the spinal cord and brain, and displays featuring butterflies and various insects. Visitors will even have the opportunity to try catching local insects. Additionally, there will be activities such as walking through local plant gardens to observe and understand the process of photosynthesis. The organizers of Bio Bonanza have ensured that the event caters to a diverse audience. While the displays are designed to engage high school and middle school students, there will be activities suitable for individuals of all ages. The development of methods of learning in humans is a complex topic that involves various social and cognitive processes. Lalonde's work primarily focuses on areas such as social learning, cultural evolution, and niche construction. According to Lalonde and the emerging consensus among researchers in the field, the key to humanity's unique capacity for acquiring knowledge and skills lies in our ability to learn from other individuals within our social communities. Humans build upon a reservoir of shared knowledge through iterative processes, enabling the creation of increasingly efficient and diverse solutions to life's challenges. This process of communal knowledge acquisition and accumulation is a fundamental aspect of human culture, and it sets us apart from other animals.
Why and to what extent should parents control their children's TV watching? There is certainly nothing inherently wrong with TV. The problem is how much television a child watches and what effect it has on his life. Research has shown that as the amount of time spent watching TV goes up, the amount of time devoted not only to homework and study but other important aspects of life such as social development and physical activities decreases. Television is bound to have a tremendous impact on a child, both in terms of how many hours a week he watches TV and of what he sees. When a parent is concerned about the effects of television, he should consider a number of things: what TV offers the child in terms of information and knowledge, how many hours a week a youngster his age should watch television,